Hi there, thank you for joining me today. I'm Father Patrick, and this is our podcast for college Catholics. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope you're having a great Christmas time with your family, and also I hope you're able to spend some time in prayer, receiving the Lord in your heart and thanking Him for so many gifts that He brings to us this Christmas. As you know, Christmas season extends for several days after December 25th, actually until the feast of the baptism of the Lord. So Christmas starts on December 25th. And this year, actually, it will end on Monday, January 9th, 2023. So it's quite a bit. So as the new year begins, we know that there are many things to look forward in this year, 2023. So in today's episode, I wanted to welcome two of our students, Andrew and Owen, who are in the process of formation toward the priesthood in Miles Christi and have been living in our community here in Michigan for around 2 years. As we're starting this new year, they, at the same time, are looking forward to traveling to Argentina to start the next stage in their formation, which is their novitiate. So, Andrew, Owen, how are you doing?
Very good, Father. Thank you so much for having us on the podcast.
Yeah, glad to be here with you, Father.
Yeah,
thanks for having us.
And it's great to have you both. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves? I know one of you has been a little longer, so he'll talk first. Sorry, Owen. So Andrew will tell us a little bit about himself, and then Owen. So where are you from, and where you went to college, and so forth?
Yes, play the seniority card. So my name is Andrew. As Father said, I'm from Littleton, Colorado, which is just a suburb outside of Denver, Colorado. And yeah, I lived there growing up. And then for college, my freshman year, I went to a D3 school in Cleveland, Ohio called Case Western.
So you were near Michigan, let's say.
Yeah, that was my first, I guess, experience, if you want, with the Midwest. It was quite a change, especially the winter. I was not prepared for. But yeah, I went there my freshman year to play basketball, actually, and then after that first year, I transferred back to Colorado and finished my undergrad degree at the University of Denver,
which was
mechanical engineering. So yeah,
I studied engineering too.
That's right. Yes, yeah. So yeah, I studied engineering there at University of Denver, DU, and then finished.
Very good. And Owen, why don't you tell us a little bit about your family, where you grew up, and where you went to school? That's the best part of it.
Right. Well, as far as where I'm from, I'm also from Colorado, up in the mountains west of Denver. But I went to school in California. It's actually where my family is from. But I went to school in Southern California at USD in sunny San Diego.
So that's a University of San Diego.
University of San Diego, yeah.
Which is a private school there.
Private school, yeah. There's quite a few schools there, so it's often confused with UCSD, SDSU,
right? Some
other ones, but it's the best one there, that's for sure.
Right, and one of our priests went there at least for some period of time. He was a chaplain, Father Martin.
Yes, I know him actually. Okay. Yeah, Father Martin. Yes.
And what did you study in USD?
I studied psychology and education, and I was also a rower, so I rowed in Mission Bay. It's a beautiful place to row, and my sister also rowed. And
what about your sister? And what's a highlight of her life?
And
her sports.
She is a very successful rower, and now she's a biker. But she actually rowed in this past Olympics, which was really cool. Our family's very
awesome.
Yes.
So she represented the U.S.
She represented the U.S. Yes.
That's great.
Yes. And so I was also a missionary after my time.
After graduating.
I did that in Los Angeles at USC for 2 years. And then,
which is a good school, nice school too.
Yeah, it's a good school. Private in kind of downtown Los Angeles. And now I'm here.
Very good. And why don't you give us a little bit, some highlight of your college years or high school years, anything you want to tell us about yourself, apart from everything that you said already?
Sure. From my college experience, well, I would say that maybe a highlight was being able to row and study in a beautiful place. And I think at least in San Diego, or of the colleges in the United States, University of San Diego was ranked the most beautiful school.
Oh, absolutely.
So it was just an amazing experience to be able to study, work out, enjoy,
and compete.
and compete in paradise,
Right, because actually I was there sometimes, and from the campus you can see the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So we would go to the ocean every day to practice.
Wow.
And, so it's just a very relaxed and calm environment down there in San Diego, and a lot of good people.
Uh-huh.
You had the faith there too, which was nice. It is a Catholic school. So you had good priests like Father Martin and the sacraments, and so it was just a very good environment.
So by the way, for those who are listening, Father Martin is another Miles Christi priest who is now in San Diego, still there, and he helps at USC, University of Southern California, as one of the chaplains there.
I handed off the baton to him once I left USC, and he's carrying on the good work there.
Very good. Well, I know, Andrew, anything that you have to share from your high school, college years?
Not a lot. No, it was a time I'm definitely thankful for. I think it's a time when, friendship maybe comes the easiest, which maybe I wouldn't have known at the time. But, I think everyone in college, when I was in college, I thought I was super busy. And I think college students now think the same. But you have so much close proximity, if you want, with your friends in college. And you have a lot of time to go and do things like we would go camping or skiing or do road trips a lot of memories like that I was really thankful for. And especially with people, who I shared the faith with or was doing apostolate with.
Right, and some of them you still know, and you sometimes call and share your experience here at Michigan and Miles Christi.
Right, absolutely.
That's wonderful. Now, people, they see a seminarian and they think, okay, he was always like a saint, little saint or something.
Right.
So
mm-hmm. What?
So my question is, did you always practice your faith? How much did you get from your family? How is it that you got, without entering into discernment, right, of the priesthood, how did you get from living in your high school years to the moment where you were practicing your faith more devoutly, going to adoration, praying, going to mass, and even becoming a missionary? Yeah,
I can start. I grew up raised Catholic, baptized, as a baby, cradle Catholic, and received the sacraments. Although I will say it was somewhat begrudgingly, especially time, for confirmation and youth group. There wasn't a lot of, I would say, interest in going to church on Sundays in the sacraments. And I think that started to change, in high school, I would say, by the prompting of my mom to get confirmed. And I had good friends, thankfully, in the youth group, and I think that helped a lot.
Shout out to your mom.
Yeah, thank you, Mom.
Moms are the best.
They're the
Absolutely.
best. Yeah, but it's still like,
and grandmas.
I was still kind of caught up, if you want, in high school in a lot of the worldly things of popularity and sports and school. And not that those things are bad, but those were the most important things to me, for sure. And then I think in college I had a lot of those things kind of stripped away. Of basketball, I stopped playing that and maybe realized I wasn't at the level I thought I was, or it wasn't, as important to me as I thought it was. And even, school and friends. And I realized a lot of those things, if they weren't centered on God, then, then they weren't as fulfilling, And so I think that changed a lot in college. And I had, good friends who were praying, who were, going to mass, who were, frequenting the sacraments, and then good priests too, who, were leading me in spiritual direction and things like that. I think that all that really helped.
Right. And Owen, what was your experience in that sense? Well, how was your journey briefly?
Yeah. Well, as far as, growing up, my family was Catholic, still is Catholic. And we practiced, went to mass on Sunday. And there was definitely a point where I realized that life has its ups and downs as far as, your relationship with God. And I saw that very clearly within my own, struggles and desires for friendship and my desires for fulfillment and to live a life of happiness and wholeness, and realizing that there might be something more out there for me. I discovered the power of the church and the sacraments through a retreat in high school. I went to a Catholic high school as well, which was great.
Good.
And so just discovering the power of the sacraments and being close to the church and learning the faith was really transformative for me and living the life that God intended and intends me to live, and just tried to continue to live that out in college. And obviously it continued to develop over time, and and led me to ultimately to come here and to be here with you guys.
Right. So that's what I was going to ask you also. And then Andrew, you can give us your input. What is it? How did you meet Miles Christi, the religious order, or, through a priest or something, or lay people? And after your discernment, what made you discern or decide to enter Miles Christi in particular, as opposed to some other place?
Sure. So going into college, I actually had thought before entering that I was going to, after college, go to Diocesan Seminary in Denver.
So you had already kind of thought about being a priest even before entering college?
Yes. Yeah. I saw I saw the amazing, the life of a priest is just really cool.
Right.
And very transformative for a lot of people, and leading a lot of people to happiness, wholeness.
Heaven, right? In a word.
Yeah, exactly. Relationship with God. And so I was drawn to that. And so I went to college with that, okay, I'm going to do 4 years. Actually, they told me that I needed to go to college for 4 years first. And so I was like, dang it. Okay, I'm going to go to college now.
You had to grow a little bit, maybe.
I did. Just a little bit though, wasn't too much, but a little. Right. So I got to college, and I was rowing, and one of the chaplains, the chaplains for the athletic department, was this Argentinian priest who, it was hard for me to understand his accent at first, and it was like, but he's cool,
Right, and he likes throwing balls and batting the baseball and running some routes and with a football.
Yeah.
And in the field with the other players and so
very
forth.
Sporty, very sporty, into sports. But yeah, he knew the faith, and he could, he talked about God in a very holistic and orthodox way that really drew me in deeper into the church and into the faith. And he also invited me to or at least it was called at the time, Pizza with Padre. So we had pizza with him, and we talked about the faith. And so
the Padres, by the way, is a baseball team, but also how the people in California call the Franciscans. They call them the Padres. And then by extension, they call every priest a Padre. Hey, Padre, like something from California kind of thing.
Right, yeah.
It's here in Michigan, they don't do that. So.
Yeah, it's the Spanish background.
Right.
Yeah. So anyways, from there, I continued to grow in my relationship with God, especially through my relationship with Father Martin. He was such a gift to me. And he is a priest, and was a priest for Miles Christi.
Right.
And so continuing my spiritual direction with him, and getting to know the community down there, and also...
One of them was?
I think his name is Father Patrick.
Yeah.
Oh, you're here. Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's awesome. Okay.
And
so
also,
we know you for a while now.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And then one of the other things was being invited to the spiritual exercises, and going on those was absolutely life-changing, and really, really powerful for me in my discernment to be holy, and to grow in my relationship with God, and ultimately to see what God's plan is for me in my life, for happiness and fulfillment. And
right, and so to enter Miles Christi in particular.
Right, and I actually remember I used to ask Father Martin a lot this question. I would ask him, Father, you're a priest. I'm thinking about being a priest. What's your favorite thing about being a priest? And he would say pretty consistently, well, I think my community is the best part. My community is just absolutely great. And I, because I was discerning diocesan seminary, that's not really a part of the experience that diocesan priests experience, which is a great sacrifice that they make.
Of course.
And, but at that time I wasn't really being drawn to that. So I was like, community, no, it can't be, there's gotta be something more,
right.
And so over time, actually I became a missionary. And during my time as a focus missionary, shout out to my team, my teammates out there. Hope you're doing well.
Where are they now?
They're all over the place. I think Idaho, I think Montana and California, of course.
Awesome. I hope they listen to this. You have to send them this episode.
Oh, they better. If they don't,
they hear about you.
I'm going to get them. So anyways, as far as my team life goes or went, I realized it was really difficult at times.
Challenging, right? It's
challenging
to have other people living with you.
Right. Yes. And just working together, it can be difficult, but at the same time,
especially if they're like Andrew.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he has to deal with that.
Don't even get me started. Oh my gosh. We don't have enough time to do that, but
okay. Next time.
Yeah. Next podcast, we'll talk about that. But it also was so good. It was so good to be able to work with a team. And I realized over time that I could not do my apostolic work without my team. It was impossible.
Right.
And so through that experience, I realized the importance of being in a community, to lean on one another, to work together, to learn from one another in our relationship with God and our attempts to be of service to His children here. So that helped me discern further to pursue a vocation with Miles Christi.
And you, Andrew, what was it that? How did you know Miles Christi, or how do you get to meet Miles Christi?
Yeah, I met Miles Christi actually. Well, so I was a Focus missionary as well.
Oh, wonderful! That's awesome.
And I was placed, in Michigan, at a school in Michigan that was 40 minutes from actually where we are right now. And so there's a few of our priests, Miles Christi priests, who help, with Focus as kind of chaplains. And so at training my first year, I met Father John, who was the superior here, and kind of started spiritual direction with him. And at the beginning, I was just kind of, spiritual direction and growing in prayer and, trying to grow in virtue and holiness. And then, for me, you had mentioned kind of seminarians and maybe the priesthood's always on the table for some. And for me, that was not the case. The priesthood, religious life, certainly religious life was never really on the table. Even by the time, I graduated college, I became a missionary, but priesthood, wasn't even really a thought. I just wasn't in any sort of place to receive, that vocation. But yeah, then it kind of started, I think I went on a mission trip with Focus to Argentina. It was kind of randomly placed there, and we were working with religious there, not Miles Christi, but other religious. And I was really, I think, attracted and caught by the life that they live, the life of, just they're totally God's, and they give up everything to serve Him. And so I think that was really powerful for me, and that kind of started the ball rolling of discernment. And then Miles Christi, I knew, through Focus and the charism, is the sanctification of the laity, particularly college students, which obviously lines up a lot with, what I was doing with Focus, working with college students, seeing it as such like an important time, where you have young people who are going to be influencing the world, the church, and
so launch pad for society.
Right. And it's, a really crucial moment. I think like freshman year, they come in and that's their time when they have a decision to make. They're not under the roof of their parents anymore, having to go to mass with them. It's kind of like, am I going to live my faith, or am I going to do something else? And in college, certainly there's many other things you can get into. So I think, those were the two things, like the desire to give myself kind of in a particular way through religious life, especially through the vows, and the attraction to working with college students.
Very good. And Owen, what have you been doing these months, a year and a half here in Michigan?
I've been having a blast with
while having formation as a priest.
Yes,
also?
Of course. Yes. No,
but in essence, briefly, what is, like, for people outside, they see, this young man was in college, became a missionary, now he entered and is going to be a priest, and he's been 2 years here. What is he doing?
Yeah.
In essence.
Right. So for the last year and a half-ish, I've been studying a lot, reading a lot for different classes. We're doing humanities, at least for this part of our formation. We're in what's called
literature, some philosophy, some theology.
Literature, history, Spanish, lots of Spanish, and Latin. And we're just getting ready for the next part of our formation. And another thing that we do is we have time each week to play sports with each other, which is great. I always look forward to that, and beating Andrew and whatever we're doing. It's always a blast.
That's awesome.
Right, and that always happens.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, Andrew, what are you going to do? So now in a week or so, you will be traveling, both of you will be traveling to Argentina. What will you be doing there? What are you expecting to do there?
Yeah, so
Celebrate with Argentina, of course. You know,
World
that's
Cup.
the first thing that we have to do.
Of course, you need to be well knowledgeable about the World Cup and the popular culture there, of course.
Yes, of course, we're going ready. No, but yeah, we'll be starting the novitiate. So the novitiate is kind of the period required by the church for religious life, which is a kind of a preparation, I guess you could say, before making your first vows. So the religious make vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. So the novitiate is kind of that first offering, if you want, of self, and it's kind of focused on, work, prayer,
virtue.
Right. It's less like kind of formal study, which, maybe people think about more when they think of seminary, and more about, as you said, virtue, growing in prayer, learning about Miles Christi, and preparing to, for your first vows.
Yeah, in a sense, what I remember is learning to live in community, right? Be humble, right. Learn to take on the harder tasks that others may not want to do, and you may not want to do sometimes. And do them joyfully,
right?
And also to learn to obey, right? To learn to have a superior. That is not a nice thing when we live in a modern culture that wants to be free to do whatever you want. Good. Well, so we'll be all praying for you.
Yes, we need your prayers.
Absolutely, yeah. Everyone who's listening, commit to pray for Andrew and Owen as they go to their next step this year, 2023, to Argentina to start their novitiate. Andrew, do you have any recommendations for good New Year's resolutions now that we're starting 2023 for any college students that are listening?
Right. Yes. In the new year, I guess I would say the New Year's resolutions are great, but the idea of resolutions are actually like a really Catholic idea, right? And so I think even in our books of meditation, or when we're talking about prayer, it's a good thing to make little resolutions even each day, with prayer each week, whatever you want. And so, again, New Year's resolutions, I'm not knocking. I think they can be very good, but I would say even don't be afraid to make resolutions throughout the year at the end of your meditation, at the end of your
every
prayer,
day.
Right? Those I think will be even more fruitful than saying, I'm going to, I don't know, usually they're, I'm going to work out, or I'm going to eat less sugar or something. But in case you instead you can say something like, "Oh, today I'm not gonna raise my voice and fall into impatience," or something simple like that.
Right. Yeah, and if you want something, I would say something generic.
Yeah.
But important is to make sure we have a commitment to holiness.
Right.
As you start the new year, you especially, because you will be more committed to holiness, to seek holiness and to work for holiness. Let's do that, right? As we start the year, one thing we want to make sure is at the end of my life, I want to be closer to holiness than I am today. At least that I have tried. And Owen, what would be your recommendation for college students so as to persevere in their faith during their college years?
Well, I would say what worked for me was being willing to be led by someone, whether it's a spiritual director or looking for wisdom from someone who's above you. But I think the biggest thing that helped me was really making a resolution, you could say, to know your faith. And so to have an intellectual formation, at least some sort of plan in your life in place for you to know your faith, and so that you can live your faith. And if you know your faith, you're going to be all the more ready to commit yourself to Christ and the church, whether that means living out a life of prayer, living closer to the sacraments, whatever that looks like for you. It's really, really important to know the faith. So reading good books, listening to really good podcasts.
Anyone that you have in mind?
No.
I'm just kidding.
No, for college Catholics, of course.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, shameless plug.
Very good.
Yeah, that's my suggestion. And do we have time to?
Yeah, very brief. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask. We're talking about our formation, and part of our formation is actually after Argentina, we get to go to Rome. I've never been to Rome, but I think you might have been to Rome before.
Yes.
What was that like for you?
Well, for me, I was in Rome only for like 2 weeks, but it happened to be amazing. We visited some places, especially the Scavi Vaticani, that is the excavations under St. Peter's Basilica,
Whoa.
where the tomb of St. Peter is. So you get to see where actually he was buried and his bones placed in the place of his burial place. So that was amazing. And then the catacombs, we visited those. But the most amazing experience was to get there the day that Pope Benedict XVI was elected Pope, and I happened to be there at the square of St. Peter's Square, when he came out for the first time, and when the Cardinal came out and said, "We have a Pope." So it was like
really
what an experience,
really incredible experience, which I would like to tell you another day, but today we're a little bit short of time.
Sure.
But that was definitely a super highlight of my visit to Rome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Imagine.
Yeah, well, again, thank you very much, both of you, for being with me today and with all our listeners and sharing your stories and your experience.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, Father.
Yeah,
thank you for all the work you're doing too with the podcast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone who stayed with us to the end today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please follow this podcast in your platform, and if possible, leave a review in Apple Podcasts. So may Lord grant you a very joyful and fruitful 2023. May He be born also in your hearts this Christmas season. God bless you, and we will see you next time.